as the title says, my Unforgiven 08 pay-per-view review. Sorry, this is coming up a little late for those of you that have been waiting for it. Technical difficulties kept me from uploading this so when I wanted to, so blame it on that. But yeah, it's not too late, so let's get started, I guess. Overall, this is going to be one of those pay-per-views. Either you're going to like it or hate it, I think. I think it's one of those type of pay-per-views. Definitely not a great pay-per-view by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that given the way that they set up the pay-per-view around 3 matches that were very similar to each other, and the scramble matches, which I will give them credit for one thing. They booked each one separate, so they made each one a little bit more individual. And it wasn't like watching the same 3 matches again and again, which was good. It kind of kept it fresh, which I was glad to see. I'm not too sure if they'll ever do this again. It was interesting, but I don't think they had the right people in any of the matches. A lot of people have been talking about that to start with. And speaking of which, let's get started with the first match. The ECW Title Scramble match, they started that off with, which I think was a bit of a mistake, but I understand stretching the Scramble matches out. I think you could have put another match in front of this one, but you had Mark Henry versus Matt Hardy versus The Miz versus Finlay versus Chavo Guerrero. A lot of people have noted, and this is very true, you didn't really need Miz in there. Morrison probably should have been in there, and Chavo, and a lot of people thought you could have put Bourne in there, and it would have been a lot better. And probably so, because you need a lot of high-flying action in a match like this, I would say, to just kind of keep the fans kind of involved. But I thought they did a pretty good job. Once things kind of got settled down, it was pretty sloppy at the start. But they told a pretty good story, I thought. Matt Hardy won, which I think everybody knew. I think a lot of people were probably kind of surprised Finlay was in there, but he was definitely in there to kind of organize everything, which kind of upset me that he was the last guy out, because I think he should have been probably the 4th guy out and not Mark Henry. Mark Henry should have been the last guy out. I think it would have been a little better and would have made the match a little better. But I did like it. I did kind of like some of the stuff they did in it. There was only a couple of really problems I had with it, but it was fun, and I thought it was good. So I'll give it 3 stars. Next, we had the WWE Tag Team Title match, Simply Priceless versus Cryme Tyme. This was okay. Definition of okay. The crowd, and you'll probably, if you read a lot of reviews or you watch a lot of reviews, you'll probably hear this a lot. The crowd was not into this pay-per-view for various reasons, and you definitely could tell when Cryme Tyme came out. They had a little bit of a pop, but not a big pop. That might have been because they pretty much knew, maybe they had the feeling that Cryme Tyme wasn't going to win. But this was an okay match. It probably would have been a lot better if the crowd would have been a little bit more into it, and there was definitely a part where it dragged with, the heels on top. It really kind of dragged, and this match went about 12 minutes, and I don't think it needed to go that long. I think 10 minutes would have been fine for this match, and you would have had a good little solid little tag match, and I think that's what they were having up until it kind of dragged for a while. But 2 stars. After the match, a new member of, to go along with Rhodes and DiBiase came out. The announcers didn't say who it was, and I thought that was kind of stupid, as they could have at least said who it was. I mean, it was Alpha Jr., but they're not calling him Alpha Jr., they're calling him, I can't remember what they're calling him now, but they're calling him by another name. And I think they could have at least said, oh, you know who that is? That's, that's the, or at least said that's the son of WWE Hall of Famer Alpha, and I think that would have been, you would have at least let the people at home know who it was, even if the people on at the arena didn't know who it was. And also, I think that, DiBiase probably should have picked up the mic and told Randy Orton from the ring, did we make a statement now? And then throw it down and go that way instead of doing what they did later. But I think that would have made it a little better, just my opinion. Then we had the Unsanctioned Match, Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. This is a match that I definitely don't feel there's going to be a lot of consistency on when it comes to if you liked it or didn't, because it was somewhat old school in a lot of ways. It was very much storytelling over, flashy moves and that sort of thing. But I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. It was carnage and lots of just good, just where you want to see them keep going, and kind of Chris Jericho getting what he deserved, and kind of a revenge for what happened before. So worked pretty well to me. Great match in my opinion from that standpoint. So 4 stars. I'll I would say, definitely, I think most people consider this the match of the night. I would definitely say watch it and see what you think of it, because it's definitely going to be one of those matches where either you're just going to think it's really good, or you're going to think it's great, and it's going to be kind of like that. So next we had the WWE Heavyweight Title Scramble match with Triple H, Shelton Benjamin, Brian Kendrick, the Brian Kendrick, I should say, Jeff Hardy, and MVP. This was as good as I think most people thought it was going to. Brian Kendrick went out there and really was able to showcase himself, even though I know I've heard a lot of people say, Triple H kind of buried him, but he was able to go out there and show what he could do. And I went into the match figuring that if he was probably going to eat the most pins anyway, so it was nice to see him at least being the aggressor for most of the match until Triple H got in there. So I was fine with that. Again, this told a little bit of a different story than the first one. The first one was kind of the end of the match was very much Matt Hardy just trying to survive. Where this was, Triple H and Jeff Hardy, going toe to toe with each other, trying to figure out, who's going to win, kind of racing to the finish, trying to figure out, who's going to be the winner. So I liked that. I thought that was at least different, which was good. Not probably as many great high spots as you could have imagined with this. I think that's the one thing they probably do need to improve in these matches. Is this was probably, if you looked at kind of the guys they had in this match, I think this is what kind of the blueprint needs to be more often if they ever do this again. So there we go. Next we had the Divas title match, which was blah, to say the least. Not very good. Michelle McCool, Maryse. I like calling her Maryse because she shouldn't be on TV in my opinion. At least not in that role. It was bad. It was horrible. It gets 1 star just for that. At some point, and I can't remember off the top of my head right now, it was after the Shawn Michaels Chris Jericho match, they went and did a backstage segment with Orton and the new young guy, the new second generation stable, and saying, we made an impact, look what we did, this, that, and the other. And Randy Orton said, you didn't prove anything to me, blah, 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 blah. And then after the heavyweight title scramble, Orton attacked Punk and put Punk out of the main event scramble, which I have to admit I thought was a bit sucky and I thought was stupid. Probably down the road it might end up being better, I understand, but I think that you could have easily because they never explained this, but I would imagine in this match, because of the way it's structured, it's probably no DQ. So I don't see why Randy Orton couldn't have come down and cost him the belt that way, and then you stick it on, whoever. But I would imagine they want it on Chris Jericho, but if that was the case, why didn't you just make the match originally with Chris Jericho in it instead of, let's say, JBL, and then, hopefully have Michaels and Jericho farther down the line. Just bad booking crap they pulled here. But before that, we got a Raw moment on, well, I guess it was a SmackDown moment on the pay-per-view, which, I never like, with Big Show and Undertaker, and it wasn't good, and I didn't like it, and I don't think anybody liked it because it went far too long. It was stupid, it was pointless, it shouldn't have been on pay-per-view. I think everyone's pretty much said that. And then, of course, we got the World Title Scramble. Batista, JBL, Kane, Rey Mysterio Jr., and Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho pretty much was not in this match because they were pretty much playing up the point that he had gotten his ass handed to him by HBK. Shawn Michaels had beaten him to a pulp, and so he hurt. He had big whelps on his back. I mean, the whole bit, could barely walk. The match was pretty much dominated by Batista. How they did, they started out with Batista and JBL, which was a bit odd, and then Kane came out, which was a bit odder. Then Rey Mysterio came out, and so the match really got going. Even though there was some good, if you like big man type stuff, there was a lot of that sort of stuff with the first three guys, and then the match really started picking up. They told a pretty good story here, where there was lots of neat stuff where like Batista and Rey were like helping each other out, and then they did it once, and Batista pinned the guy they were trying to. They double teamed, then they went for it again, and Rey double teamed Batista, which was kind of cool. Or double teamed, double crossed, I should say, Batista, which was kind of cool. Match ended, as most people know, with Chris Jericho winning at the very last possible second after Batista had pinned Kane. And again, we got a different outcome than the other two of these matches, so it made it where it was at least different. Again, Punk not being in the main event, I thought sucked. I think lots of people have said that. We'll have to see where it goes, I guess. But yeah, still, I thought it was good. I like this as much as I like the other one, so 3.5. Overall, I would give this pay-per-view a 7 because of the SmackDown moment, because Punk wasn't in the main event. That really kind of bugged me. Even though I thought the storyline aspect of it made sense, and I thought it was good in that sort of thing. I think he could have done it better where at least he was in the match. You could tell the fans were kind of out of it because he wasn't in the match. It'd be interesting to see why they decided not to put him in the match. I've heard varying reasons, and none of them make much sense. So, anyways, there we go. Like I said, it is a good pay-per-view, but not a great pay-per-view. And definitely not something that I would say go out of your way to see. You know, most people are probably not going to like it, like I said, or it's going to probably be 50-50. Some people liked it, some people didn't. It's one of those type of pay-per-views. But there you go. Have a good one. I'm out. Later.